Hello, everybody. My name is Sara, and I am so honored to be the moderator of this panel, The Art of Becoming, at the Festival of Fates. This festival is such an incredibly special place for spiritual discovery, for community well-being, for addressing big ideas and challenging ourselves, and also for artistic expression, which we'll be exploring this evening. I'm really grateful to everybody behind the scenes at the festival for pulling all of these logistics together. There's a lot of logistics just in this panel alone, and it's been really a pleasure to work with everybody. This panel is full of brilliant imaginations and incredible people. We have 5 panelists this evening, and I'm going to introduce them all to you musically before we start to talk. So first up, we have Teddy Abrams, who many of you know and many of you adore, and he's our very own director of the Louisville Orchestra and also an incredibly talented musician and composer. He's a versatile artist, a forward thinker, and has inspired a deep love for orchestral music in our city. Please welcome Teddy Abrams.
Thank you so much. It's so great to be back at the Festival of Fates. Some of my happiest musical memories were in this very festival. Some of the craziest, most outrageous collaborations that have ever taken place were instigated by the Festival of Fates. So it's great to be back. I'm going to play a short prelude that I wrote a couple of years ago as a collection of piano pieces that I thought would be nice. After some of the most complicated piano music in the world that I conceived, to write things that people might even be able to take as amateur pianists or students and play just for fun, similar to what Bartók did in his Mikrokosmos. So this is an example. It's a short, slightly wistful prelude here.
talk through this mic? Is this on? Okay, great, good. Yeah, you can sit right there. Join the living room. That was beautiful. Thank you. Okay, so up next we have Wu Fei, who was a vocalist and a master of the guzheng, a 21-string Chinese zither, which you see here and you're about to hear in a moment. She is an incredible improviser and composer and has collaborated across genres with musicians like Abigail Washburn, John Zorn, and Bella Fleck. Fei is traveling to us from Nashville, Tennessee, and I could not be more excited to welcome her here this evening.
My first note. It's my knee hitting the mic. Okay, it's okay. Also it's called the guzheng. Literally means ancient zither. Have more than 2,500 years of history. 21 strings. Still going strong. It would be a new song that I wrote recently, mixed with some old songs of mine. It's called The Migrating Bird. During COVID, I hiked a lot on the hills, and I was very inspired by how powerful nature was and how birds and grass, nature, they will grow and regrow and migrate. And next year, some entirely new flowers will be growing, wildflowers, and so you just never get the same flowers. It's very powerful. And it made me think, just like humans, we've been migrating throughout our history to explore and to be in a better place, better future. And if birds need to migrate, you can't stop them. Or fish need to swim for 1,000 miles to give birth to their babies. We're just one of them. So we'll just see what happens. I'll mix them with the improvisation as well. Just see what happens. My sleeves are too long. Next time I'll wear short sleeves. 路旁的花正在开呀，树上果儿等人采，等人采呀。嘿喽哎喽哎，树上果儿等人采，等人采呀。塞咯嘿咯嘿咯哩哎咯哎，远方的客人，请你留下来。远方的客人，请你留下来呀呀！哎呀呀呀呀呀！他叫我把雨的那雨，叫雨行能行呀，因为是雨藏等雨。他叫我把雨的那雨，叫雨行能行呀，因为是雨藏等雨。吃葡萄不吐葡萄皮儿，不吃葡萄倒吐葡萄皮儿。高高山上一条藤，藤条藤上挂铜铃，风吹藤动铜铃动，风起藤停铜铃停。 吃葡萄不吐葡萄皮儿，不吃葡萄倒吐葡萄皮儿。
耶！
Incredible. Thank you. Thank you. So next we have Valerie Coleman, who is an internationally acclaimed artist and is one of the most performed living composers in the world, also from Louisville. Coleman is the founder of the Imani Winds and holds positions at the Juilliard School, Tanglewood Institute, and the Manhattan School of Music. The Louisville Orchestra will be performing her concerto for orchestra this weekend, and I'm excited to welcome 3 members from the LO who are going to perform the 3rd movement of her piece, Rubispheres, now. So let's welcome Kathy Carr, who happens to be Valerie's high school flute teacher, Matt Carr, and Andrea Levin. And also Valerie Coleman to introduce her piece.
What microphone should I use? Oh,
Yeah, it's your...
hello everyone. It's so wonderful to see you. You know, it's not often that a composer gets an opportunity to have music performed as such a wonderful event, such as this Faith Festival. So I'm so glad and proud and delighted to be here. The piece that is going to be played was written a few years ago. It came out of a need, and believe it or not, it's weird to say this at a festival of faith, but it was written for a grunge Lower East Side club in Manhattan. And it was a composers plays composers marathon. And they said, Valerie, we want you to create something that you can rock out to. And so with me and my buddy, my colleagues from Imani Winds, which is a woodwind quintet that tours across the country, Grammy nominated this year. Yay! I decided for these 2 other Black women who are strong and just rock stars themselves, wrote this piece that has these overtones of rock and jazz to it. So I hope you guys rock out in your seats. If you feel like you want to tap your toes, I'm not going to be mad at you. But this is called Rubispheres, and this is the movement 3 called Revival. And that's it. Oh, I love it.
Yeah, that was awesome.
I think so. I think I'm going to go for
I feel like the bassoon always brings the grunge. That was awesome.
Woohoo!
Yeah. Okay, so up next we've got Will Oldham. He's also known by his stage name Bonnie Prince Billy, and he's a prolific and timeless lyricist and singer and a positive force within our community. He is a connector and a collaborator, working with both local musicians and national icons such as Johnny Cash, who covered his I See a Darkness in 2000. Will is a Louisvillian through and through, but is often on the road. In the past few months alone, he has toured Ireland, Germany, Italy, and across the U.S., and is about to release a new album with Nashville superstar producer David Ferg Ferguson. Please welcome Will.
Yeah. Yeah, you want to? It's just at the end. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Oh, yeah, please,
we
yeah.
joining?
Sure. Yeah, please.
In B,
Oh, and B, okay.
in deference to
Is
this
B major or B minor?
Chinese surfboard. Major.
Major.
Oh, so this is called Why is the Lion? I think about animals a lot. I write songs about animals a lot because I, feel like an animal. And it's incredible to be here. This is one of my favorite rooms, really in the country, but definitely in Louisville. It's wonderful to be here at the Festival of Faiths with these three, and specifically who I can see with my eyes right now, but everybody else that you've witnessed so far and will witness once we all get comfy on these couches. Valerie's piece was awesome. Thanks for being here. Why is the lion still here outside? Why is our bravery tested? Haven't we proved that our love can't be moved? Isn't it time we are rested? Why does the lion keep fear so alive instead of just letting us live in harmonious states where we all can just thrive and give what we're able to give? can still tear at our legs? How can she still have such hunger? She's fed on our hearts and our tongues, yet still begs through the night, terrorizing our slumber. The llamas and lambs are kidnapped, imprisoned. Soon they will all disappear. The walls have grown tall, the wildflowers wild, the state of our striving unclear. All broken and bleeding, bruised and accosted, we wonder if there's hope of winning, and then hope of sleeping. We are so exhausted, and then hope of something beginning to rise from the ring and hear someone sing. Is it my voice, or better yet ours? Are everyone's starting to bring intention that scrubs and that scours the filth from the light, leaving us sparkling bright and preparing the llama's return. I love you forever tonight, and I will love you forever. You learn.
See, I told you Will was a collaborator. He was pulling people backstage.
I thought I had a different plan. I thought I was the end. I was, oh, okay, this one.
Yeah, we don't really need to rehearse.
Yeah.
We didn't rehearse.
I'm sitting here.
I was there.
Okay, last up, our final panelist this evening is Tahj Vaughn, who is 15 years old. He is a student at the Louisville Academy of Music and wrote his very first composition at our last summer symposium, which is a program combining composition and chamber music in a collaborative and enriching environment. I saw Tahj completely light up through this experience, and I'm so excited to welcome him this evening to have his piece played. The piece is called Falling Blossoms, and it will be performed now by the esteemed Valerie Coleman, joined by the incredible cellist Barbara Bogatin of the San Francisco Symphony.
Join us, join us. Oh, amazing. So, Tahj, can you talk to us a little bit first about this piece and any inspiration behind it?
Yeah, so the main idea around the piece is a blossom tree, and it's sitting on a mountain overlooking the ocean, and the blossoms slowly go into the distance, and that was just kind of the main idea. And it was really cool composing this piece. It was just an eye-opening experience, and it was just amazing. I just want to say thank you to Miss Valerie for playing it. Yeah.
My honor.
And I know you all also had a lesson together earlier this week online.
Yes.
Can you all talk a little bit about that, like what that looks like at the beginning of a composer's journey?
I think the most important thing about a composer's journey right at the beginning is that they're excited about all the possibilities in front of them, and that they're empowered to really dig into all the different things that they can do with composition. Composing is one of those things where you start off with a blank sheet of paper, and there's an infinite number of possibilities that are afforded to you. And so what do you do with that, right? And it can be a scary and daunting process, but if you're inspired, if you have a vision in mind, like you have with this wonderful piece, then I think the journey just starts off with joy. And so this piece was truly inspired, and I'm so excited that you wrote that for flute and cello. We need more flute and cello works out there. Good stuff.
Wonderful, yeah. Do you know if you're to write your next piece, what it might be the same instrumentation? Do you
With
think
flute?
you might? Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
You're
yeah.
gonna stick to the flute.
Definitely.
No.
I definitely would like to explore, but flute and piano and cello, that was a really cool piece. And I think if I keep on going down that path, it'll just be more beautiful songs ahead. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, it's amazing to see that first inspiration and that first spark. And I know that's why I love working with youth is seeing that joy and the possibility of anything is possible. So I wanted to ask all the panelists, you all have written many pieces. Can you remember the first piece that you wrote? That first moment that you realized that you could put anything, create anything? You go first. I don't know.
My visit structured actually and also performed. I think I was 12. It was written for two voices. I was in the choir, so I was very. I wanted to write something for my teacher, and so I wrote two voice for soprano and alto. I was singing the alto, and then my partner sang from the choir sang. So it was for my teacher. So I remember that. So for two voices. Yeah.
And do you remember feeling? I mean, you must have liked it.
Yeah. It was kind of weird, just performing your own piece in front of all my classmates. I was in middle school, first year. In China, there's a different middle school setting. So 12 as for first year middle school, and just barely knew anyone. I was like, oh, they're all going to be judging me, but hey, let's do this. I think we did a good job. So I was knocked that out of my system. Yeah.
I remember, because I grew up very involved with music, but didn't play any music until my late teens. I did more theater and acting things, and then when I was 19, I was just sort of gradually learning chords, but I didn't really want to play anything. I wanted to make up songs. So I learned a handful of chords. It didn't still feel like I didn't know what I would do with it or what I was going to do with my life, and I didn't necessarily feel like there was a future in music or anything like that. I had been with my mother to India and gone to an astrologer who had told me that in my past life I'd been an elephant, and in the life before that I had been a bug that lived in a rock.
Wow.
And if I was really good, I would be a woman born into a Western family. And if I was bad, I would go back to being an elephant. So I was convinced that my dissolute artistic life was going to lead me to being an elephant again. So the song was about that. and I couldn't, and I was living in a closet in New York City with some friends, and one of them inherited like $5,000 when his grandmother died, and he booked some studio time and said, "Come on, Will, I hear you making up songs in that closet." Said, "Come play this," so we recorded the song, and I'm literally, it takes about a half a second, 3/4 of a second for me to change the chords between songs, or maybe even a second and a half to change chords because I couldn't play the instrument. But that was the first song that I wrote was called the Effant, because I was like, L being the in Spanish, I just took that off and it's the Effant. And it was about how I was going no place fast. And I was looking forward to returning to my elephant roots. Yeah.
That's a hard story to me. What about you, Valerie?
I mean, an elephant in a past life, that's not a bad gig right there.
Not a bad gig.
Yeah.
Do I want, you're a girl born into a Western society. Do I want to be an elephant, or do I want to be a woman in America?
Well,
Oh my gosh.
Who gets
oh, no.
the better treatment?
Oh, no. Well, I was very young, and I knew I was a girl, not an elephant. And my mom she had just, little things in the house, like drums here, or a cheap instrument, flute or a saxophone, things like that. And so there was a little keyboard, like a Casio, a really cheap one. And me and my sisters would play on that as part of our playtime. And for me, I created this song called Music Lives when I was about 7. It was so cheesy, but I'm 7, so it was like this, music lives, da 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 da. Just diatonic fun, yeah.
Is there a recording somewhere of that?
Who knows, maybe one day I'll record it.
Great. What about you, Teddy?
Oh my God, the elephant story is so good.
What can you do?
It's so
what
good.
Can you do?
I don't have anything quite that exciting or ominous. But I was obsessed with trying to write music like Mozart and Beethoven, because as a 3rd and 4th grader, when I first started playing the clarinet, that was the beginning of a very lonely kind of social divergence from the norm. And I believe quite thoroughly that I had a personal relationship with these dead composers. And it was probably kind of disturbing. I haven't unpacked that fully, but it was.
It
went really far. But then one of the first pieces I wanted to write was way too ambitious. I should have just stuck with writing basic things. But I wrote a full clarinet concerto, which was also very cheesy and not good. But I was very proud of it. I worked really hard to try and make it, because I wanted to be just like Mozart. So I wrote this whole thing, and I guess I was proud enough that I did send it to Tilson Thomas when I was growing up, and I sent this thing. I don't know what I expected was going to happen, but it felt really incredible to have completed something like that. Even though when I look back on it later, many of the notes were chosen somewhat at random, and it didn't add up. But it was still filled up the page. It looked like it.
It looked good.
Makes sense.
Then you played it too?
I played the second movement a couple of times at school assemblies.
Okay.
And was very, very proud of that. That one works. That one more or less worked, but the other stuff was a little bit gibberish. But I felt compelled to write. There's nothing better than the feeling of hearing something that you've made, especially when you're just starting off. It's there's nothing like it that I've ever experienced in life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, amazing. So my next question is thinking about inspiration and creativity and our creative mind and that state of creativeness when a lot of us are pulled in many different directions, whether it's teaching or touring or directing an orchestra or having a family or having homework to do. What are some ways that you've found to help find that inspiration or get into that state musically, creatively? Because I'm personally very interested in that and would love to hear how you all do that.
I can start. So, life can get pretty hard when you have a lot of homework and it's 9 p.m. But sometimes, you feel like a feeling of kind of just stillness, and one way to kind of clear that or get some more feeling is sometimes you just gotta go on the piano and just play a song and kind of feel the vibrations of the piano, and it really helps out, and it really just carries your emotions away. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. It's like the feeling of the vibration. Yeah.
It feels like just developing a constant unconscious, subconscious, or just up below consciousness practice of staying open and aware, and trying to constantly refresh one's perspective, and listening and communicating and watching people and reading things, so that then when it's time to compose, it seems like some sort of stillness is required. But if you're not in shape to take advantage of that stillness, then that stillness will go by and you just have a bunch of great stillness, which is nothing to scoff at. It's awesome when we can get it. But if you want to fill that stillness with the creation of music, you have to have yourself in some degree of preparation and condition.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
If the stillness doesn't come right away, or rather if I don't work towards my stillness, it'll find me whether I want it or not. So, for example, with the day-to-day, and you have a deadline to write something, I will take a shower. And there's something about water, the idea of water. Maybe it's the womb effect. Some composers have said that they go, surfing and
or swimming, yeah.
Or swimming
laps is great.
Right, yeah. For me, it's taking a shower to find that stillness. When that stillness doesn't come, it'll find me at 4 a.m. I'll wake up, eyes wide awake, melody there. The world is quiet. And so I'll just go right into the living room, pop open the computer, and just get to work until the sun comes up. And then when you start to feel motion around you, that's when my stillness kind of says, okay, I'll let you go now.
It's interesting because, everybody creates sound. That so far everybody has said that is coming from a point of quiet.
Well, it's also, we're surrounded by so much noise in many different ways. I find that the second I make an effort to distance myself from especially technology, which is the noisiest of all.
Oof, preach on that.
I'm amazed by how much music starts to be generated. Like if I go biking or walking and make a conscious effort to not use any technology, it's like that constant drug that we're using all together suddenly starts to wear off, and you go, oh, that's what the real world is like. And music starts entering into my head, like stuff that I don't think about if I have the constant nonsense of the technological impediments to receiving it. And I feel like the ease of access of this technology, this is not an original thought by any means, but as a creative, it might be a different perspective on it, that I find it's constantly blocking the signals, like just pumping in the other people's tiny creations, like small little teeny videos, just things that just keep on looping or sending you to the next thing. Like it blocks your ability to then process the world and turn that into the sound that ultimately turns into, especially in classical music, large scale things. You need more than just a little bit of inspiration. You need inspiration in the time to construct something. If you're talking about Valerie's 22-minute concerto for orchestra, or things on the scale of Mahler, that's not something that can be processed quickly. And I don't think we have much of that space, and the world's not providing it very easily. And the fortitude required to then carve it out is becoming a greater and greater necessity and a greater and greater hardship. And it's not something that people easily talk about just like any of the other challenges in life, it feels like yet another thing that's thrown onto us to be personally responsible for a thing that was forced on us, that we had no say in. So I know this is turning into a bit of a rant, but you wonder how Beethoven wrote pieces on his scale, or the Brontes wrote what they wrote. It's hard to do that right now.
Right.
Can you imagine if Beethoven just spent all his time scrolling through Instagram? What would he be able to write? Like, really, it's much harder.
Yeah.
All right, and rant.
But it's interesting thinking, like,
That's the best
going
quote
on going on a walk, going for a swim, like being away from, having that silence or having nature. Maybe that's the answer. Leave the phone behind. It's hard, I know, but
Yeah.
What about you, Faye?
For me, I've been practicing as this. It's been a kind of like addiction to me to practice and to create. This I've been doing that since I was 5. So at this moment, and I'm also very sensitive to sounds. Any sounds could trigger me at any moment, or prints, or colors, or shades. So it's kind of, I'm a little maybe opposite. Is like, it's hard to, if you try to get my attention, I have to really, okay, what are you talking about? Because I'm in my zone. I'm like kind of born that way. So I sit in front of my either piano or guzheng, or hearing the pitches of the winds versus the birds. They sound like counterpoint to me. Or even earlier when you were talking, actually we were in the back room on the stage, and I hear your voice like a counterpoint with the whispering in the back. I was immediately, that sounds like peace to me. So that's just how I hear the world. And I take walk, and then just also nature every day since COVID, basically, just realizing the color, the best combination. I mean, colors also to me are like sounds and pitches. So it's interesting. Sometimes even when I don't feel like, I just feel so dreading, but knowing that I will feel so much better after playing or something, and then I sit there and then, wow, there's something. It's actually the less I expected myself to come up with something, the more interesting something will. So that's my process. But of course, when I write for what Teddy said, for an orchestra, it's a different kinds of process. That the inspiration is already done there. That is really like a tailor's job, because the designing is already there, but it's tailor how you put these pieces together. Actually, it's wearable. And then you have to try, you know what I mean? It's like labor, it's pure labor, because there's a gazillion possibilities.
And lots of time.
And which one is your style? And then you're finding that style, because anyway, combination could work. But technically, can it work effectively? So there's a lot of trying it out, not working, and then finding out. But that's another, almost like a monk kind of a work, to really just zoning in. It's a different kind of a creativity, which, so that's kind of from my experiences.
With that, like thinking about everybody went through different training and had different teachers and came from different backgrounds. Was there like a point where you found your own voice, or you felt like, I don't know if there was a moment,
for me,
I think for everybody, but how did you take that tradition and make it yours?
Oh wow, that was a hard one. For me, it was a hard one, because growing up in China as a composition student, my job was not to play; it was always to compose. And I never thought of no one asked me, why do you write music? I was like, wow. The first time was actually in the U.S. My professor asked, why do you write music? wow, I was already like 22. I need to rethink my life. I think, I was put on this path since I was basically 2 years old. I was scouted out by professors to be a musician, touching your bones to make sure, yes, they would touch you to see if your hand structure would be suitable as a musician, as an instrumentalist.
Did they ask you to touch relics like the Dalai Lama? Like
I don't remember.
Yeah.
I don't remember, but that happened. But it did happen because, like, when you do this, you have like as far as if this part of your fingers can touch, that's like supposedly really good for instrumentalists. It's because it can stretch. It's like this. If it can touch this part, that's, you know what I mean? Yeah, it can. Yeah, kind of stretch it a little bit. It was really hard. But when I
went to be a musician.
When I came to the States, when I realized when I saw musicians playing, smiling, even it was actually surprising to me because I rarely saw, back in home and musicians or professors on stage playing like. No one smiled. And then that was just an eye-opening. I said, well, this is what it's supposed to be like, right? This looks so fun. And then improvisation really liberated me that my professor, Fred Fritz at Mills College once said, Faye, you have wonderful craft, but I don't hear Faye. So that really, I had to not go to school for a week to rethink what that meant, because for my whole life that I actually wrote all that music doesn't sound like me, or what does it even mean? So I was nurtured in an environment that was very, very safe to just go crazy at the school's environment. And then more practice, just going out of your comfort zone. And then eventually I felt, I can take off on this cliff. Just try my wings out, because I never tried my wings out. And I decided to jump. Before I quit music, I should at least test them. And I tested them, and it was fantastic. So that was my moment since then.
Amazing. Did anybody else have a similar experience or
My turn. Yeah, I feel like music for me, finding like the joy in it and really just finding the joy in composing, it can get a little scary sometimes, knowing that I haven't been on this road for very long and knowing that there's been people who have been playing longer than me and doing all this other stuff. But I feel like finding the joy really comes from inside and knowing it's about your own journey, your own path, and just like embracing and knowing that it might not always go the way you expect it to, but as long as you keep on loving it and like trying to be a better person every day, it'll all map itself out. Yeah.
very wise?
Yeah, I think because I started playing music later, and I'd listened to so much music, I just figured there was no point in trying to be anybody else. The only reason to make any music was to see what I could individually contribute, through
So that was from the
collaboration. But
beginning.
it was just like, well, it better make itself justify its own existence, the music. Yeah.
Will, can I ask, are you very concerned with genre or how people classify your music, especially at a moment where that's a big deal right now, right?
Is it?
Corporate.
Well, it always has. I feel like genre is more an element for magazines and radio stations and newspapers and record stores, so they just know how to organize things. Mm-hmm. Beyond that, anybody that you speak to about, what do you listen to? What's your favorite music? I listen to everything. They don't listen to everything. You don't listen to everything. I don't listen to everything. I don't listen to Taylor Swift, for example, but I do listen to lots of music. I'm not saying anything bad about it. I'm just saying I don't listen to it. I tried to pick something you would all know.
This was Will's last event ever.
I could say I didn't listen to the second or third Love Child record, but I figured you wouldn't know what I was talking about. So no, genre. It's sort of. It seems so fluid, and that people who play music in general understand. Like, well, if you need me to play in a certain style, I can do that. But otherwise, I like to be free.
right?
Well, I kind of wonder between that and Valerie, because like if I hear just your voice, I know it instantaneously, even if you were doing a cover. We've done a bunch of covers in the past. But I mean, Valerie, I mean, you also have a distinct style. Like I was listening to this piece and thinking, that sounds like I would link that to the piece we're playing the orchestra this week. But yet, it's not the timbre of your literal voice. It's something else. So I'm kind of wondering, you know, like based on that, like you came to this because you were just yourself. But how did you do that, you know, compositionally without the mechanism of a literal voice box?
I think it had to do with the fact that I'm self-taught as a composer up until a certain point. You know, all I had back in the day was the radio and, you know, Earth, Wind, and Fire and Stevie Wonder and, you know, Parliament Funkadelic, you know. But at the same time, listening to WUOL and listening to Dvorak, New World Symphony, and composers like that, and somehow, and gospel music, you know, growing up in the church. And so writing without any kind of parameters put on you, you start to write what you like. And maybe I didn't answer this question because I didn't know how to actually answer it, but I think the answer is that I've always known my style subconsciously, and I've always depended on it. It is what gives me energy to pursue composition further and further. And because of that, when I finally did do official study, I was kicked out of the composition program.
Wow.
And
That's what I was going to ask how the
it.
transition went. Yeah.
It was a strange transition. I fought it. I got reinstated back in, and I thought it was because, you know, the person, my first private composition teacher told me I did not have what it took. But I stuck with it anyway because it was all I ever knew. And I found out, it wasn't until I found out decades later that that very same teacher told another woman composer that she should just marry rich. And she's one of the most preeminent composers out there right now. So I didn't learn until much later that that was, you know, someone else's vision of what a composer should be. And I didn't fit into that category. I'm so glad.
I'm so glad you didn't listen.
Well, you know, I'm stubborn. But I'll tell you what, I'm just so glad that the way composing, the world of composing now is not so caught up into this old boys network of what composing should be on the scholastic level of things, but rather it's about creativity. And it's about tapping into the human spirit. We're capable of so many amazing things and so many unique voices out there. And the channel of which we create can be stifled so easily by peer pressure or by societal pressure. So I'm just so glad that, you know, being one of those gatekeepers now, if there's somebody that is creative, I'm just like, let's open those doors wide open, and they can step in their own voice, feel comfortable in their own skin.
I think that's so important.
I would like to echo Valerie that you just it made me realize also. I love good food. That it's like in order to stay healthy and strong, you need to have a lot of different nutrients. If you only eat 5 things your whole life, you know, imagine that kind of health. Music is same, you know, the more, and then you everyone likes different flavors or spices, but the more you experience to put it in your body, and then you start to come up with your own dishes. You know, try the spices from this part of the world, and then, you know, there's like us creating new dishes, but from the old recipes, and add a little bit new, and then that's why we stay strong. That's good for our health. Music dishes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's like people and ideas.
Yeah.
Not just having a few that are
Right,
the same as you know, like
same 5 things on the menu.
Exactly. Yeah.
You get tired of it, right? After 1 meal or 2.
Right, right. And I think through music, you really do hear, like all of you all, I hear your voices and your music, and I think it's such a beautiful thing that you're able to connect to somebody or understand somebody on a different level than just speaking. And that brings me to kind of the last idea is why music? Why sound in a bigger sense? Like what draws you to this as your creative output? What do you think music can help us put into the world? I know it's a big question, but something just a little more abstract.
At risk of, getting Teddy riled up again, like one thing that I've started to think about in the past few years with, the way that streaming music has taken over a lot of people's experience of music, and that it's like, even as a kid, when I was, thinking, well, music isn't a legitimate way of making a living, it's frivolous or something like that, and I've gradually come to understand how much I need it, and then beginning to recognize how much everybody else needs it. It's a sustenance. I mean, you make the metaphor, the food metaphor, but you could just flip it around and be like, yeah, food is like music. You need it. You need to take it in. Like if you don't eat, you'll starve. Just like if you don't listen to music. And people need music, and it was, and the way that someone like the guy that runs the Spotify company, he looks around and he realizes that people need something, and it's music, and that people, when they are experiencing music, we are at our most vulnerable, and people aren't going to question being offered like just, this bounty of recorded music, for a small fee, and then they can be taken advantage of, and the guy who runs this company doesn't care anything about music or the music experience. He just wants your data, he wants your financial loyalty, he wants your identity, essentially, so that he can use that as an asset that he can trade, and he knows that you won't know that it's happening because you were vulnerable in that space, and you're not going to even admit it, that it happened to you, that you were taken advantage of in this space where you felt free, and that's where you felt inspired, and where you felt like what music does for us, which helps us expand our emotions. And it's like a dream, it's like a waking dream state, and our dreams are like our training ground for how we deal with everything in life. And music it happens in life. You can listen to angry music, you can listen to joyful music.
Unlock your heart.
Unlock your heart, yeah. And I think that's one of the big dangers of the way that people experience the way that technology is taking over people's experience of recorded music at the very least. It's something that it's horrifying to see. Even the big concert promoters and just saying like, well, no one's gonna like step away from their need for music. We have everybody in the palms of our hand. We can keep just wringing everything out of them because no one's gonna let go of music because we need music.
It's so interesting that you say that we need music, because that is not necessarily an obvious thing. We experience it that way, but I don't know that anybody's really thought about the necessity of music along with, food and shelter. But for most of us, it is. You really can't imagine, there was the Nietzsche quote about this, but like you really can't imagine life without music, right? It's an impossible thing, and every culture throughout human history that we know of has developed this. They've developed a system of musical thought. It has similarities to language, but it doesn't communicate anything as directly or as correspondingly as language, and that's intentional. And so it leads me to believe that music is filling an inherent gap in the species. The species is set up, especially as we've developed society, to have these gaps that can only be filled by the art and these forms of fitting together human minds and thoughts in distinct beings that aren't fused or somehow connected in any other way. It is necessary for a very deep reason. It's not, as Steven Pinker suggested, just some kind of like vestigial structure of language. You're totally wrong about that. I'll fight him on that subject matter. I'll fight the Spotify guy too. I'll fight him. But I really think that music solves an equation that was intentionally left unbalanced. And I know that this is a festival of faith, so regardless of how you see that, if you're looking at it from a more scientific or spiritual background, or maybe the intersection of those ways of perceiving the world, I really believe on some deep level that the equation was intentionally unbalanced, so that we would fill it with things like music to heal the sundering that we all experience as human beings, as individuals that feel so disconnected. And there are these things that we've made that allow us to feel as one, even if for a moment, but that's enough.
Yeah, I know that getting into music, I don't know, like you're talking about your childhood of connecting with music and having relationships with composers, when you're, and feeling like I know that there's, my thinking is so strange. I know that there are people out there that I connect with, and so like my whole life is to get to like this, to where we're on here together. And it's like, this is what I knew. I just didn't know how to get there, and it took music to get me to this space where it's like, yes, I do have people that I have something in common with. It's, thanks, Sarah.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, I've forgotten the question.
It doesn't matter. We can just...
But I will say this. For me, music is healing. It is that very thing that allows us to connect to people beyond words, that singularity that we feel, that we share. You said it so beautifully, and we need music now more than ever. And we need the messages that music can bring with it as well. I'll leave it at that, because nothing else needs to be said more for that.
DJs are better than algorithms.
100%. 100%. Yeah.
I can share something. For me, I feel like music kind of gives life color. Even gray is beautiful, and I feel like with music, it kind of takes life to another level. And like, if there wasn't music, it would just be like Miss Faye was saying, the same 5 foods. I mean, it gets kind of boring after a while. And with color, it can kind of take its variance, and it just kind of is a deeper way to express your feelings, a deeper way to go into deeper topics. And I feel like without music, life would just be not the same.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah, music is joy. It's a lot of emotions, but to me, mostly is joy. I always told my family that I wish we could just be singing operas, or just singing and instead of talking. Can we do that? And they're like, oh, Mom, you're too weird. I was like, oh, good.
Yes, like the umbrellas of
it
Cherbourg.
would be so awesome. Yeah, so it's kind of way of, not even way of living. It's just so fun. So that's, I hope, we all keep having fun, having a good time, and learning each other, sharing. And that will be a much better world.
Yeah, I agree. So. And it's, thinking about Spotify and technology and stuff, I do think there is something with live music that is so powerful. You talk about the vibrations of the piano when you start, like being in a space and feeling, not thinking, there's no words, and knowing that the other person is having those same vibrations go through their body. I mean, I think, all of you all are performers and creators, but like when you perform, also feeling that transcendence or that vibration where you almost are connected in a completely different way is, it's hard to describe, but I think just that putting more of that into the world, as all of you all are doing, and I hope that everybody here is also inspired to create their own music, explore their own voice within whatever tradition or background you come from, and finding that stillness, seeing what comes from it, listening, surrounding yourself with lots of flavors and music and people is so important. So, yeah.
And singing, just sing.
Yeah.
Singing, yeah. Maybe we should end the panel with, although I'm not going to sing. Everybody can sing their way off stage. Yeah, we have a little, I mean, is there anything that anybody wants to ask each other on this panel? There's a lot of incredible people here, and I can also ask another question, but is there...
Do they have questions?
Who? Oh, the
Yeah,
audience?
I don't know if they have questions.
Yeah, oh, there's
I see
one.
that.
I see a hand right above the camera there.
I got a
Yeah.
question for
Yeah.
Valerie. With respect to living in your passion, chasing your dreams. I remember when we were in school at Mel, shout out to Mel. Nanette was like really rigid.
Who's out there?
She was rigid with like reading the notes on the page. So how did you make that leap to composing your own thing? Because even at Mel, read the notes on the page. At U of L, read the notes on the page. But you made that jump to compose your own, what was in your heart. So with just talk about like living your dreams or being in your passion, as opposed to being so notes on the page.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah. First of all, I must know you. Well, you're in the dark, so I can't see you, but go Bulldogs. All right. Yeah, I was writing before flute came along, and I was creating before flute came along. And it was flute that actually taught me how to notate music. So this actually became a tool for that. And then, in band at school, and Miss Moore, everybody, I don't know if you guys know Miss Moore, Nanette Moore. She's one of the preeminent band directors this side of the Ohio River. And she was somebody that was really, really strict on anyone that came through her doors. Taught them music theory, taught them how to hear, play in tune, all of those things. And so by the time I got to Miss Moore, it was really, she was honing what was already there. And so I'm forever grateful for that, but it was never stifling because the music that she always brought to the table, I think really was in tune with where me and my colleagues were as teenagers. I remember she brought Somewhere, Barbra Streisand's version of Somewhere, West Side Story. Oh my gosh. Or no, it's West Side Story. Oh,
Yeah, There's a Place for Us.
Yes, there's a place for us. And we did that in marching band. And her introduction to it was she turned off all the lights in the band room and just somewhere, that Barbra Streisand distant sound. Oh my goodness. It was transformative for us. So I would say that she was somebody, and I hope that we all have that person in our lives that is that transformative, inspirational figure that introduces us to music, that opens our ears, that sets for us, helps us to set a standard of quality and integrity for us as we pursue our craft. We all need that.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And good to see you.
Does anybody else have a question? No?
Oh, I see one there.
There?
Yes.
Great. I'm Vanessa. I'm from a national organisation called New Music USA.
Oh, nice.
Wow.
And I'm here today. I flew in from New York for this event and for tomorrow's concert with the Orchestra and Valerie Coleman's piece. So my question for you all is, what is so special about the music scene in Louisville?
Huh.
So I could go and tell everyone back in New York what I learned.
Well, Will,
Yeah.
I think you should kick this off because you are one of the most voracious and knowledgeable listeners in addition to being one of our greatest representative performers. You always know what's going on, you know the scene, and you make such an effort to see people and attend things in every genre. So I'm curious how you would sum that up.
Well, I guess I had really wonderful thing happened to me 10 years ago or so, where Alcy Brown, who's hugely important here at the Festival of Faiths, invited me to participate as a voiceover narrator for a documentary about the Louisville Orchestra called Music Makes a City. And that was the first time it was kind of laid out for me, and we spent a few days in a recording studio going over the material, and I was talking about the history of the Louisville Orchestra again and again, and being told to repeat this line, and so it was like sort of drilled into my head. But having grown up here with Actors Theater of Louisville right across the street, and the orchestra, and ballet, and the opera, and the legacy of the arts in Louisville, having been given a lot of support from the top down to allow it to happen, and to allow the citizenry of Louisville to, access so much incredible creativity and arts, and to be shown how powerful and valuable it is. I think that really, it could have happened anywhere, but it happened here, and it created a culture here that I don't think is being, actually fully taken advantage of right now by, certain institutions and certain entities. But it did create a culture that made the arts a language and a form of exchange that doesn't happen in similar-sized communities around the world or around the country. So that it just, I think it's something where we can talk about and appreciate what other people are doing, all around the city in all different mediums, and it's just accepted as a valid thing. And because of Louisville's strange geographic position, it feeds on itself and doesn't. There's not a sense of, I don't think, competition. And it's just like, why would we think about certain larger cities, because we're not there and we're far enough away, from other cities that we need to create our own heartbeat here. I think it's just this a place where artists recognize artists and know artists, but we're coming generationally from the experience of that just being a valid currency. That's what I think.
I think what you talked about too, with the artists that are here understanding the scope and scale of Louisville's music scene, forces some very interesting things to happen. Like the fact that we don't have legions of jazz artists, legions of freelance classical musicians, legions of even bluegrass and folk artists, means that people collaborate and find ways to work together out of necessity, but it leads to something very beautiful. That lack of competition, I think, is distinct. I mean, we've done gigs where the people playing in our ensembles are not the native exponents of that style, but they are incredible musicians that are willing to play anything. Many of the coolest people I've met have been in circumstances where we were not the specialists in whatever it is we were playing. We just thought it would be really fun to play together.
Right.
I think other cities might be much more judgmental, like you stick to what you do best. You play this kind of jazz, you play this kind of bluegrass, and it would almost be considered maybe even disrespectful in some communities to see that switch. I think we're open to it because we have to be. I bet between the two of us, it would be hard to find a name of a professional musician working in Louisville that we hadn't heard of. I don't think it's possible to find that in a city like LA or Chicago or New York. I bet we could. It would be very weird if there was somebody we just had never heard of in town. And I think that's a beautiful thing in a way. It's a community.
And it's very difficult to make a living making music in Louisville, and so everybody who's involved with it has experienced some of the outer limits of what music can do, and yet in order to do it, they have to be passionate about it and fit it into our lives for the most part. And so the people that you run into and you want to play music with and experience them playing music, they're going to take you places that there are no financial, they're not trying to make more money doing what they do because they're not making any money. And so they're looking to lift you up. They're looking to lift you up and to lift themselves up and to lift the other people on the stage up through all sorts of explorations, that what people might identify as having a genre relationship, but it disappears within 5 or 10 minutes of the musical performance happening most of the time.
Something quickly. Will, you talked about the support for the arts, the high arts, that's been very strong here. But some others have mentioned a couple of things, and I wondered about, is there a generative interaction between that and the people's arts, the peoples of the church and the music traditions of the churches, the Appalachian tradition of people making their own music for their own pleasure? There's some other areas of just people doing music for themselves, and I wonder if you see that interacting with the rest of it.
Well, certainly. I mean, I've long said that if, much of the best live music in Louisville happening on a regular and reliable way is free, and it's on Sunday mornings, and it's in the churches, mostly west of 9th Street. And there's the first live music show I saw after lockdown was kind of a gospel review in a community hall, probably about 6-7 blocks west of here, and I just felt like my head was going to explode with everything, with like inspiration and joy, and I'm just like, this is music, this is the best music, this is the best music in the world, and it's happening, and people aren't writing about it, people aren't talking about it outside of very isolated communities. It's just like what people are doing, and I think that's even what Teddy and I were talking about. Like, most music is happening that way, but it's happening in this very, it's a lineage, it's a necessity, it's just fully alive here. Does that sort of talk?
Well, I was interested as maybe you see intersections. I mean, Valerie might be able to more because of growing up in the church. So I was just wondering if there's a cross-fertilization that goes on.
There's definitely, yeah.
Well, I'll say this. When I was with the Louisville Youth Orchestra in my high school years, the youth orchestra decided to do something that it rarely does, and that is commission composers. And there was this performer, her name was Carol McClure-Han, and she was a songwriter of Appalachian music. And hearing her music, hearing her sing, that was transformative for me, because it was something that really just touched the soul. And we did a tour of, different parts of rural Kentucky and playing this music that she created, having that experience with her. I think that intersection with Dvorak and other things on the program was really inspirational. Excuse me.
And I don't know if you mean Louisville specifically or more broadly beyond it, and I'm not sure if you're from here, I can't see who it is, but much of the work at the orchestra has been about actually redefining the ensemble and the idea of an orchestra as being from the people. I would be concerned if somebody said, the Louisville Orchestra is a high art organization. I would take that as a bit of a letdown after all the work that we've done to try and show that the orchestra is very much of the people, and articulating that in a very specific way by offering our platform to musicians of every genre. We spend much of our time in rural Kentucky every year, thanks to the General Assembly's appropriation to tour the state, and we're almost always collaborating with musicians outside the traditional classical genre who represent Kentucky's incredibly rich musical traditions. And nothing brings people more joy than seeing that intersection and seeing their state and the very best music of their state represented on our stages. And it is a beautiful thing to watch culture meld like that. As Will said, you're not going to see a better concert than Sunday morning at St. Stephen's Church. And the times that we've collaborated with that choir have been some of the most inspirational musical moments of my entire life. And I think that is a function specifically of our town, because we kind of have to do that kind of thing to stay inspired and connected. I think it's one of the best facets of Louisville's cultural scene.
And like you said earlier, there's not really, genre is just something that people use to sort in a record store or,
Right.
sell music. It's not, and I think there's a lot of crossover in our city.
I know, yeah, we
'Cause
were
it doesn't
talking about
matter
like
what
the
genre.
immigrant and refugee community in Louisville and in Nashville where Faye lives. And I know like that Kentucky Refugee Ministries works with a guy named Fred Bogart who during lockdown was actively reaching out to members of like the Louisville-born community or the American-born community and pairing people or making trios in his backyard and shooting these little musical collaborations with Cuban musicians, Middle Eastern musicians, African musicians, and Louisville musicians, and it worked seamlessly and thrillingly.
Great. Well, I think we're out of time, so thank you all for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you all for listening.
Thank you, Sarah.
You don't want to say